this was one of those things, and she had the nickname Shady Chick.
Welcome to Off the Hanger. This week's guest is the lovely Malvika chef. She is a content creator from LA. Now, we caught up and had a lovely chat about all of the things in her wardrobe, our shared love of Eli Saab, and why she's inherited some absolutely fabulous fashion pieces from her very stylish grandma. Hi Malvika, thanks for joining us on Off the Hanger. Can you tell us some of the projects that you've been working on recently?
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. In terms of recent projects, I would say, there are a lot of partnerships that are happening that I'm working on right now that are to go live in 2023 early. So those will be coming out on my social channels. I also recently had the privilege of working on my first film, which should be coming out in a couple months as well. So kind of my foray into acting, which has been really, really fun. And I just got back from Miami Art Basel. So those are some of the things that have been recent and on my mind.
Oh my goodness, that all sounds so super exciting. So what's your earliest childhood fashion memory? Have you always been into fashion?
I have been into fashion for quite a while. I think the minute I started going to school and having to find things to wear every day, which is like literally basically from childhood, I've just loved the challenge of expressing myself through clothes. Now, the funny thing is, I grew up going to a private school when I was really young. And then in the middle, I would say like in 3rd or 4th grade, I switched to a public school. So in private school, you're given a uniform. So even within the uniform, I would get really creative. Like you had options. You could do a jumper, you could do a red shirt and beige khakis. So there were options and I would get very creative with that. But then when I got to go to public school and choose what to wear every day, I think I had the most fun. That was a lot of fun.
So were there any outfits that you specifically remember loving as a child?
So specific outfits that I remember as a child, it's funny because my mom used to dress me obviously up until I went to school. And as a really, really young child, I remember that my mom used to put me in Winnie the Pooh outfits. And for some reason I loved them. Like I would tell her, just I want the Winnie the Pooh outfit. And she told me this recently. She was like, you would only wear the Winnie the Pooh outfits. I don't know why. And so I think part of that is there with me today where I'm like, I like the whole playful side, a little bit of the, kind of playing off of things that I've seen in film and television. I love that. Like for me, some of the biggest inspirations comes from shows like Gossip Girl and stuff like that. So I think television has always had a big influence in my fashion sense, whether it was early with Winnie the Pooh or now. So that's why it's also exciting that I'm slowly moving into acting.
So what's the oldest thing you've got in your wardrobe?
The oldest thing that I have in my wardrobe is honestly one of the things that I have it here with me. It's one of the things that my late grandmother has just passed down to me. And the reason I probably didn't get it up until I was like maybe 14, 15 years old. But it is like a very, very old piece. And I'm actually going to show it to you. It is a very vintage Yves Saint Laurent scarf. So it's really, it doesn't look like the modern Yves Saint Laurent, but I'll show you. It's really fun. It's got a lot of the Indian character in it. So when I first received this, I didn't even know it was Yves Saint Laurent. And then my mom told me, she was like, did you see it's Yves Saint Laurent? Because there's a little logo in it. I'm trying to find the logo for you guys. But it's very beautiful. It's this gorgeous, deep emerald, and I love it for the holidays. I'm a lover of vintage things, and so this is definitely one of the oldest pieces just because it was my late grandmother's.
Oh, I love that. I love that it's quite a sentimental piece as well. It's a piece that you've inherited from your family.
Fun homage to like my Indian roots, because it's just like, it really reminds you of India and Indian just design, I would say.
Now, what's the most expensive thing you've got in your wardrobe? You don't have to tell us how much. Some people do, some people don't. It's entirely up to you. But what's the most expensive thing that you've got?
Very publicly known because a lot of people have this bag. But I remember after I was like a year into creating content full time, I had, just from various freelance things that I was doing, I saved up enough to buy myself a really cool Bottega Veneta cassette bag. Now, this isn't like the most expensive handbag out there, but it's quite an investment. And I just remember being so proud of myself for being able to do that because I mean, my parents had told me, they were like, if you're doing something where you're like kind of a startup, basically, you know, in the first couple years, you're gonna go in a loss. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense to me. I don't have that many expenses as a business, you know, because as a content creator, it's mostly just you putting out content. There aren't too many expenses. There are some, but not too many. So I was just really proud that, like, you know, as a startup and someone who's, it's kind of entrepreneurial what I do, that I was able to kind of get this for myself, so.
Oh, it's such a good colour as well, though. I bet that's great for a colour clash.
Yeah, I liked that it was, so here's a little tip. If you shop in the US from selfridges.com, so Selfridges is a store that they don't have here in the US, but if you shop from the US on selfridges.com, for some reason the prices end up being a little bit cheaper than if you would get it from a store in the US. So this was actually the best like price that a Bottega Veneta cassette bag could have been for anyone in the US.
Yeah, that's definitely a great tip. Now, are you quite sentimental when it comes to fashion? Have you got a most sentimental piece?
Sentimental piece, yes. So the scarf is definitely among one of those pieces, but one more thing that my late grandmother passed down to me is going to be a huge shocker. I'm going to show you. It is a really, really, really fun pair of Chanel sunglasses. Now I mean, look at this.
Wow.
It's got like a pearl. It's like classy, but a little bit sporty and gangster. It's like, and I really think that's who she was. It's funny, she got these very, very late in her life, much later on. She really didn't have a lot growing up. I remember my mom told me she only had 3 outfits to wear up until until she got married to my late grandfather. And, you know, that's when my late grandfather slowly, like, he also started he was doing his own business. And then later on in life, they were able to kind of like enjoy the nicer things, but early on she didn't have much. So then when she got to the point where she was able to enjoy the nicer things, she really, really, really bought some of the randomest things. So this was one of those things, and she had the nickname Shady Chick. People would call her Shady Chick up until she was like, you know, up until the day she passed, people called her Shady Chick. So it was funny. It was like a funny little nickname she had, and I think these sunglasses are very indicative of that. And yeah, I think I still wear these today, so I love them.
Oh, I love those. They're super cool. They're very like late 90s, early 2000s.
Must have been. It does seem very Y2K, yeah.
She must have been a proper, like, real style icon.
It's because she really defied tradition and what people normally would wear, especially in India. So she lived in India her whole life, and no one in India at that time, even today, like, I don't think many people would wear this, but, you know, it's different.
Is there a piece in your wardrobe that you would say most sums you up?
The thing that I have that probably sums me up the most is it is a black and white turtleneck that I have by this brand called Nanushka. And for me, it reminds me a lot of the concept of yin and yang and balance in life. I don't know if that was the inspiration that the designer had when creating that piece, but for me, I really, really love the idea that, you know, two opposing things, or two, like a black and a white, or just two different colors can come together and create balance. I am a big believer in the idea of balance in life. So, you know, just because for me, like, I was raised in a religion that really does not emphasize or love the idea of materialism. And so I constantly grew up feeling guilty that I loved fashion, but I really realized that the idea of balance is important in my life. There are some ideals that I really, really believe in terms of my religion, but then also just balancing that out with modern day and the way that we live and the way that we, you know, must express ourselves through some sort of artistic medium. For me, it happened to be fashion and beauty, but yeah, I think that turtleneck that I have that's half black and half white is very symbolic for me for a lot of reasons. But I will say, I don't believe in the idea that things are black or white. I really think that there's a lot of gray area. So perhaps that's one little thing I have to say about that, is like, I don't think anything is ever black or white. There's always a lot of gray area.
Have you ever had a fashion faux pas or a wardrobe malfunction?
Probably many times. I have recently been like a more newbie to this whole idea of like red carpet fashion and style and stuff. My first ever red carpet was actually quite recently. It was for the Miss Marvel premiere here in Los Angeles, and it was my first ever time at a red carpet. The faux pas was just not planning because I was like, I can just wear anything. Then I freaked out. I literally had nothing to wear. The morning of, I live quite close to the Grove. I ran to the Grove, which is this like outdoor shopping mall in Los Angeles. I ran there, I went to Nordstrom, I bought a dress, and I just wore that because that was literally the only thing that was there in my size. It ended up doing okay, like it ended up working out okay. I styled it fine and it worked, but the faux pas is like not planning. I think it's important to plan, especially when you have big events. So for me now, like for a fashion week or even like now for Art Basel, I plan at least like 70% of my outfits in advance, and then I leave a lot of I leave that 30% room to have fun, explore, and then even if I plan those 70% of outfits, maybe I won't like choose the earrings or choose the accessories just yet. I'll let me feel it out once I get there.
Yeah, I think that's it. So it's about doing the planning before the day, so that on the day you've not got that stress, you know that you're going to be comfortable in it, you can walk in it, you can sit down, you're not going to fall out of it.
Absolutely. And some days we wake up, and this has happened to me just recently in Miami, and sometimes we wake up and we're like, I just feel so bloated. I cannot wear the skin tight thing. It's not making me feel confident or happy or comfortable. And so it's really about, even if you plan those outfits, always have enough, like a little bit there for backup.
Now, this one is my favorite. Show us your favorite shoes.
Okay, I will show you my favorite shoes. Here they are. Okay, so these are a pair of By Far shoes. Now they've been very worn, so the fronts are a little bit just slowly ripping. But the reason these are my favorite is because I can throw these on with anything. If I'm wearing a ton of color or if I'm wearing full black, these are just something that go with anything. They are my go-to night out shoes. Yeah, and I just love them. There's really nothing that you can't wear with these.
They're amazing because they're quite statement, but also quite simple, if you get what I mean. And I imagine because of the mule shape, they're probably really comfortable because you've not got loads of straps and things that can rub on your feet. So they're probably really quite easy to wear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just like they're so easy to slip on. They're no fuss. You don't have to tie anything or, put it through. Like some sandals are difficult to like tie or whatever it is. You just slip these on. Very simple. Yeah, I love them. I actually have to thank my mom because she bought them for herself. It didn't fit her. And then I was like, Mom, I'm just going to buy them off you. Like, just give them to me. I love them.
So it sounds like you come from a really fashionable family.
It's funny. I never thought so. I never thought that because the truth is growing up, I think the idea of fashion and beauty, because maybe of the religion that I came from and even the society, the just general South Asian society, people would always comment, oh, you're wearing too much makeup, or they would look at me weirdly if I would dress up a little bit more or like express myself a little bit more colorfully. And people, a lot of times, at that time especially, people did not keep their opinions to themselves. They would just, especially if it had to do with your appearance in the South Asian society, they voice it to you. Don't wear so much makeup. I remember my grandmother from my dad's side, actually, she used to tell me, don't wear lipstick. It makes your lips black. Don't ever wear lipstick. And so I grew up listening to these things, and I felt so ashamed of the fact that I loved fashion. And I think my mom, to some extent, probably went through that as well. I'm sure my grandmother, given her different taste and style, also had her fair share of criticism. But I think that's why when I was younger growing up, I didn't think that I could be or was fashion forward. And now I've embraced it a lot more because I understand it for what it is, which is a form of art and self-expression. And I really don't think art should be something that is limited or constricted in any form. So if someone today actually somebody asked me, do you ever think there's a too much with makeup? And my answer is no, because to each his own, and individual choice is to me the most important and utmost value, that idea of individuality.
I think it's that societal notion, isn't it? The idea of kind of stepping outside of the box. And I know particularly here in the UK, and I imagine lots of other countries as well, there is that kind of urge, especially in winter, that everybody dresses in black and it's all very drab and there's no colour. So then when you do see somebody walking down the street and they're in a bright colour, there's always that urge for me that I have to go tell them how fabulous they look, because I love that somebody has put on that bright colour to make themselves feel good, but actually they don't realise that they're impacting other people, and other people feel good just by seeing them step outside of the box, and that we should all really be doing that a little bit more.
I think that's the thing. It's like, on the one hand, people are very appreciative when you try something different, but on the other hand, there's always going to be people that are like, that's weird, because it's out of the norm. But I think, again, with that idea of like yin and like balance and everything like that, there are always two sides. In fact, this is something that my late great grandfather told me. He says in life, people and ideas always have two sides like a coin, the good and the bad. Always try to focus on the good. And I think that's true of any decision you make, anything even online. When you get a lot, sometimes if you have a very succinct and specific opinion on something, there will be a lot of people that don't like that you have that opinion, but other people will appreciate that you were bold enough to state that this is your opinion on something. And I think like when you focus on the good gets better. So
yeah, absolutely. So now, what is your number one fashion item that you've been lusting after? Is there a dream piece that you've been desperate to get your hands on?
Okay, so my dream fashion item is a dress designed by Elie Saab. When I was younger, I used to think I want my wedding dress to be designed by Elie Saab. But now I'm like, to be quite honest, like I've never even been in my first relationship. So a wedding to think about is like, I don't even want to think about that. So I don't mind if it's for anything else. Like, if it could be for like a red carpet or anything like that, career related or anything. It could be for a wedding, for my wedding, if that ends up happening, but I'm not going to put pressure on that. So my dream thing to own is a custom dress designed by Elie Saab.
Oh, I am totally with you on that one. They are one of my favourite designers. I always look out for their collections because the pieces are just so incredibly beautiful. They're just amazing. Their work is stunning.
Absolutely. And I think it's like, for me, I like to find pieces that sort of pay homage to the ideas that are very inherent in Indian culture, which is like really intricate embroidery, rich color. And I think Elie Saab, every time there's something that it just reminds me a little bit of my own culture. So I really like finding pieces that in some way, shape, or form remind me of my culture. Even if it's not a designer that comes from India or is Indian, there are just bits of it that remind me of my culture.
Oh, I love that. I love that it's not just about it being kind of these beautiful designer pieces. It's actually about finding the connection and the reason why you connect with a piece. I think that's really beautiful.
As an Indian American, like I have always had a deep connect with my culture, but also in a sense, a healthy amount of disconnect where I'm able to, born and raised in America, I have been open to a wide variety of cultures. And I think had I been born and raised in India, I would maybe be a little bit more closed off to the idea of other international designers. Maybe I would just go for like the Indian designers. But today I think it's really nice to celebrate. Yes, I do love celebrating the Indian designers, but also designers from all across the world that are doing amazing things.
So what is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self about fashion?
Make those mistakes. It is totally fine. Stop second guessing yourself. There is no amount of comments or criticism that other people will give you that should inhibit your love for creativity and expressing yourself. I know I've always been a really expressive person, and whether it's like my cooking or my clothes or my makeup, there's always a little bit of flavor and color in what I do. And I just wish that as my younger self, I didn't second guess that all the time just because other people thought it was weird or different.
Oh, thank you so much, Malvika. It's been so lovely to talk to you and hear some of your fashion stories. What have you got coming up? What is it that you're working on next?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on Off the Hanger. next couple of things I'm working on for 2023, definitely have a lot more plans to head into acting because my background with Indian classical dance and performance has really, I feel that void in my life now because I'm not doing dance as often. So I feel that acting is somewhat filling that void of performing and really playing a character, which you do a lot through Indian classical dance. So hoping to do a lot more in that space. But also, I think being more intentional about the messaging that I share online, because like I mentioned, my biggest thing is empowering individuality and really championing individual choice. So instead of just mindlessly like sharing outfits and not really explaining anything behind it, I really just want to make sure that my messaging is a little bit more succinct with the beauty tutorials I share or anything like that. It's just being a lot more intentional about anything that I share and then also the opportunities that I take on and just always sticking to that why.
Oh, that's incredible. It sounds like you've loads of projects on. I can't wait to see what you get up to. Well, thank you so much again for talking to us. It's been lovely speaking to you.
It was lovely. Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you everyone for listening.